beautiful people, thank you so much for tuning in. Today I'm covering one of my most requested videos ever, and that is where to add ornaments. Now, for a lot of people, adding ornaments into a tune really seems unconventional. You have the main melody and then you have these little flourishes that you can add in that fill that melody out. And for some people, it's really difficult to know where to play them, how to play them, why to play them, and where they even begin. Now, the best thing to do to get started is to learn how to play ornaments and what ornaments there are. You can do that by following my ornaments tutorial, which is super easy. I've linked it up here, I've linked it in the video description below, and I'll also put a link at the end of the video. Once you know how to play some ornaments, then you can work on adding them into a tune. Now, there are no steadfast rules or particular places within a tune that you should be playing ornaments. It's down to personal preference. It doesn't really matter if you play a lot of ornaments or you don't play any ornaments. It's really how you want your music to sound and the sort of music that you like to listen to. In some Irish music, apparently you can get taught ornaments in a certain way and can get taught how and where to place them. Obviously, I don't have any experience in teaching in that way. I haven't learned from anyone in particular, so all I've learned is what I've looked for online, advice, guidance, and also what I've heard from listening to various tin whistle and low whistle players play the beautiful music that we all enjoy. Firstly, the easiest place to put ornaments for beginners is on the long notes. Now, these are notes that you hold and drag out, and the easiest thing to put on these is a little bit of vocal, diaphragm, or finger vibrato. So if you've come to the end of a tune or you're in the middle of a tune and you have a long note and you're holding that note for a longer amount of time than the other notes in that little bit you're playing, you can add some vibrato. So for example, even if you're just playing the basic melody, adding that little vibrato to your longer notes will give your tune an added element and just increase the dynamics of what you're playing, make it sound a little bit more polished and maybe a little bit more pretty. Now, the second and probably the most popular place to add ornaments is when you have a repeating note. So in a little phrase of your music, for example, where say you have 3 G notes played one after the other, rather than playing those 3 notes by blowing 3 times into your whistle or using your tongue to separate those notes, you can actually use ornaments. Now, cuts, taps, and rolls are quite popular ornaments to put in to separate those 3 notes rather than blowing 3 times into the whistle. So for example, if your tune was instead of blowing all those notes individually, you could add cuts or taps or some sort of roll in between those 3 Gs. It just makes it sound a little more polished and perhaps a little more Irish or Celtic if that's the sort of feeling you're going for. Thirdly, I like to use ornaments when I'm transitioning up and down the whistle in any position or any key or any notes of the whistle. So if you have a little part in your tune, for example, that plays like this, I would rather play this. And what that's doing is adding a little flourish in between the transition of where you're going up and coming back down. Now, you'll notice that this was on a repeated note. It doesn't always have to be, but it does make up and down transitions on tin whistle a little smoother, a little more interesting, a little easier. You can also do this with octave changes. I also like to put slides in if I'm going into the upper octave between certain notes. So going up from a D to an E, I'll often slide if it's in the higher octave, and coming back down to that B, I'll often slide from an A to get to that B. So if you're on the change between the lower octave and the upper octave, a few slides or a few little flourishes there can smooth it out if it's a particular part of the tune that might sound otherwise disjointed. A great place to put tin whistle ornaments, and my fourth suggestion, is the starting note of your tune and also the starting note of different phrases within the tune you're playing. So with the little bit of notation that we've been using, you could, if that was a phrase within the tune and say it repeated itself, you could cut the first note. So the first D, rather than playing, you'd cut that first D. So you'd have this. If you were then to add those other ornaments we've previously mentioned in between those repeating notes, you'd have this. Notice I've got a slide, I've got a cut, a tap, and I've also got that cut on the initial note. Last but not least, and this is one I've picked up from other videos here on YouTube I've watched, using ornaments to cover the spaces that you breathe within a tune. So the places where you breathe can sound a little disjointed in a tune, especially if you need to breathe often and you breathe rather loudly like I do. You can use those slight pauses or those gasps of breath to add an ornament into your tune, which might give it something a little bit different. Now, using everything that we've learned in this video, I'm going to show you where I would place those ornaments in this single line and why. So as an example, if I was going to play that tune without any ornaments, it would sound like this. So to start with, I'm going to be using slides at the very beginning of this particular phrase, and that's because it's nice to put an ornament, a cut, a slide or a tap or anything at the beginning notes. Then I'm also going to add some slides when I change octave and go up into the higher notes, especially between D and E, because I like to do that. I'm going to add the odd tap on any of the notes that are longer and that are held, because that's a little bit of vibrato effect. Also, I'm going to add some little cuts or rolls or flourishes in between notes that go up and down. And you'll also notice that I breathe at the end of the phrase, so that again is where I add an ornament. So let's give this a whirl. And again. So that is it for my ornaments suggestion. I hope this has helped. Don't forget, you can put them at the beginning of phrases or at the beginning of your tune. You can slide when you're going into the higher octave. You can use cuts, taps or rolls to separate repeated notes. You can add vibrato or taps on longer notes. And you can also use it to cover up the sections where you breathe. It is really that easy. So hopefully if you guys have got a basic tune, you can use these few little tips to add your own ornaments in to any tune that you want to spice up a little with that Irish beautiful flair. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys loved this. If you did, please like this video, subscribe, share it with your friends, your family. Also, if you haven't, which I'm sure everybody here on this channel has, please do check me out on Ko-fi and Patreon, which allows me to keep creating video content for you guys to enjoy. Also on Patreon, you get a whole host of amazing extras, exclusive videos, downloadable content. Yeah, everything. So I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have comments, questions or suggestions, leave them down below. Check out some of my other tips and tricks for tin whistle, and I will see you guys next week with something a little different. Happy whistling. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.